the topic that we're going to talk about is fostering innovation. I think one of the things that has become very clear as we've gone through the last 2 days is innovation is absolutely critical for our industry, whether it is new modalities or it is a different way of doing our business, such as AI. And yet, the environment has had a lot of change in it, and so we're going to try to assess what are those changes, how are those changes impacting our ability to foster innovation. And I think one of the biggest changes is in the US, where we've had tariffs, most favored nation principles, US efforts to reshore, significant funding reductions in research, and personnel changes all through the government. The environment's changed a lot. And so I was hoping that you could give us your perspective on how those changes have impacted the types and speed of new products that we can bring forward. Is it a harder place, an easier place? How does it impact our ability to innovate?
Sure, I can start. In today's world, the uncertainty is the only certainty, and it's quite unsettling, it's hectic, and it feels like everything everywhere all at once. I think there's a movie about that. It's also dichotomous because, on one hand, I think in general, innovation will benefit from a flourishing environment with economic and political stabilities. But on the other hand, I think we talked a little bit earlier, crisis, instability, uncertainty also can stimulate creativities. And we have, again and again been amazed by the resilience of this industry. And this industry has weathered through a lot in the past few decades. And human ingenuity never sleeps. And I think the innovation will continue regardless. So there's always ways that the companies, the individuals will find a way to innovate, to be creative, to solve tomorrow's problem today. One thing specifically in biomanufacturing space, you mentioned about the tariff, and you mentioned about various kind of programs, initiatives that may affect this industry. One thing we all know, the cost pressure will only continue to increase, not going to go down, and that will put enormous pressure on the CMC and on tech ops and on biomanufacturing. And I think that will drive this space to increasingly focus on process efficiency. I think that's something that regardless of whether it's the next generation of biologics or cell and gene therapies, process efficiency, economics, manufacturing efficiencies will be always going to be the focus moving forward.
Yeah. I think we have, innovation requires people, good people, and good people need incentives. And so incentives could be the mission or the sense of duty, but invariably there's compensation. There's compensation incentives. It's hard to get the air traffic controller to work when not knowing whether they're going to get paid or not. And what happened in the industry over the last 3 years that in a lot of our industry innovation had pretty much evolved into a two-pronged innovation. The larger pharma companies doing research, but a lot of the startup companies are really delivering actually more advanced molecules, advanced modality molecules than the large pharmas. When you see the market cap got halved, or in some cases reduced by 70, 80%, there's a huge incentive impact. And earlier with Scott Gottlieb talked about the curative therapy economics. So theoretically, 5 years ago, we all thought that you work hard, you know, in 5 years you come up with a one-shot cure, and you get paid $3-4 million a shot, and then the payers are saying, well, we're not sure we're going to pay that. There are alternatives. So that cuts off the capital. So for me, the biggest change in the last 3 years is the disruption of the flow of capital into the industry, which affect the incentives of the good people who really want to do the right thing, but they have a family to feed.
Yeah.
Very much like an air traffic controller situation.
Yeah. You know, while the environment has changed, we heard from Hillary and Scott, and I think they pointed out some really important things, right? That when changes first started occurring at the FDA, there was a lot of hand-wringing and, oh my God, what's going to happen? But I think they went out of their way to point out the opportunities that are also present in this situation. Things like the Cedar Center for Trial Innovation, the Rare Disease Innovation Hub. Sure. We've seen new draft guidance on comparability for biosimilars and the FDA pre-check program.
Right.
On the whole, how do the two of you view these changes as impacting innovation?
Lady first.
Thank you. I applaud the initiatives FDA has been taking to increasingly improve the regulatory flexibility and taking innovative approach into some of the practices that FDA has been putting in place for many, many years. And I think those programs will stimulate innovation, will help the companies, especially the small companies, the young companies that don't really have the time and cash to go in through a long, drawn-out drug development process. The Rare Disease Hub is a great initiative, and they bring, you know, FDA internally get together and be able to share. As we all know, we work in large organizations, so sometimes you just really don't know what others doing across the campus, right? And, you know, bring experts together, trying to figure out how to align and stimulate and encourage rare disease indication development is phenomenal. And I also think that from the cell and gene therapy just going the back 5-10 years, and many of those innovative medicines that were developed from the very beginning focusing on rare disease because human genetics is well understood. So rare disease therapies are the kind of very often the starting point of many therapeutics for common diseases. So I think that will really drive the innovation in drug development.
Mm-hmm. I would echo that. I think the FDA can do a lot to help us enhance innovation. I was really worried about the FDA with the changes and a lot of the weird things happening. But today I am just much more encouraged knowing that Rick Passador is returning to head up the CDR. Those of you who don't know Rick, you should Google him. To me, he's legendary. He transformed himself from a pure regulator into a regulator and advocate, and working with the industry, connecting the industry with the regulatory. So I think changes like that would definitely enhance innovation. I also hope that the FDA will soon working with the industry so that we begin to create platforms. The situation here is that the FDA sees all the filings, all the INDs and BLA filings. By regulation, they can't tell. These are all confidential, but they know that. They've seen that. And some of the CDMO companies also see a handful, but not as many as the FDA. And when you see those 31 flavors of the same thing, you couldn't help but to wonder, how do we really help all these companies to shape an industry standard that help them compete? It doesn't inhibit them compete. We did that for the biologics 25 years ago, and I was part of that, and that impact was huge. That's a historical decision that the 8 of us decided that we'll build the same kind of reactors and purification downstreams by tweaking our design at the time. So in this cell gene therapy or all these new modalities, we just have too many flavors. Too many people are trying to solve the AAV problems. And the FDA leadership is needed because they see everything.
And that's the origin of those mysterious questions you get during review. You're like, why are they asking that? Clearly, they get to see the whole portfolio of what's going on. So we've talked a lot about the U.S. Of course, one of the things that has changed a lot recently is I would say, the rise of China as a key center of innovation. Tell me a little bit about how you think that the capabilities that China has and what it has proven to date will change how we view innovation in this industry.
I'll take this one maybe.
No, go ahead.
So I think China is extremely competitive in this space. They're producing more scientists and engineers than we do. The whole country, USA and Western Europe combined, produce a lot less than China does. And they also have the cost advantage. Their scientist cost is about one quarter of the US cost. And they have the policy edge. In other words, whoever regulates them, whether it's the CFDA or the local, the rules are much more flexible and much more pro-business. So if you have a patient died or have a severe adverse event in the U.S. trial, you could be spent months and years on that. And the policy edge that people have in China is that that can be resolved very quickly. It's probably just a report, and the IRB says it's okay, it's done. And so then we have a question to ask seriously, and I try to ask FDA whenever I can, is that should we just copy whatever China is doing? And if you do that, we'll be taking more risk. And people who are noble say, oh, you can't do that because that's unethical. But if you don't do it, is it ethical when you lose this competition 10 years from now completely? So I would continue to ask the question, how do we use the term modernize FDA, but it's really how do we just change FDA so that we can be more competitive? We can get into phase 1, get human data, 5 times faster than we could today. That would be something that we.
So you're saying basically a shift in its risk posture.
A shift in, it's a paradigm shift to say, well, small molecule, we did it with microdosing
absolutely.
Decades ago, right? It's a similar concept to say, is there a micro dosing equivalent in cell and gene therapy that we control it, but we get human data much more quickly.
No, I agree, and I think the rise of Chinese original kind of innovation is not coincident, and it's decades of policy and the investment from government. One thing that I think we could do better is innovation need capital to sustain. With today's private sector investment has been held back, and on the government side, the federal funding on the NIH funding and some of the academic funding's been cut back. that is a real concern and it's a real threat. So that's an area that we need to solve. Historically, that one private market is not performing, federal government funding will be able to step in and support the research. I think in today's environment, we feel a little bit different. I completely agree, the talent is key. STEM cell education, we need to start with children, and that are, you really help them to focus on science, focus on STEMs, and I think this is something in China, in the Chinese society that traditionally been highly valued, and I don't know if in United States it's the same or not. I have a slightly different view on Scott's, the imitation versus the invention or innovation. A couple of companies ago, I worked on biosimilars. Biosimilar is a pure imitation, but it's imitation within the constraints because of the patents and everything. And my learning from my biosimilar development experience is it's actually very, very hard to develop biosimilars because of all of those constraints and the IPs and everything. And it forces you to be creative within the box. And nowadays, I think, thinking outside of the box is relatively easier, but when you're so constrained, it forces you to be very creative. And it also forces you to have a much deeper understanding of the modality of the molecule, the product, the manufacturing process. And all of the learning, way back then, we didn't really think too much. But now, almost 10 years after, I felt that we have been able to apply those learnings in developing the next generation of biologics, the maps and everything. So there's no doubt, no question that the Chinese companies have been imitating the innovations that the US industry have been doing for many, many years. But I don't think we should underestimate the power of learning through that intimation and how that actually enabled them to develop the future medicines. So I think that's kind of a situation that I think we need to pay attention.
Yeah, I agree. Biosimilar is very difficult. Sometimes I use the analogy of if you fly an airplane in the open sky, that's your innovative drug. You can fly as high as you want. But if you fly, if you do biosimilars, like flying an airplane trying to go through a window, and you have to hit that window, small window.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah. And but at the same time, the patent system, the IP system in the U.S. and Western Europe protects innovation. But with the advent of AI, there's a potential consequence that with the AI, you can come up with a better very quickly or circumvent the patent very quickly. So as soon as your innovative drug is launched, there's a lot of data, and in the past it may take a decade to replicate to come up with a biosimilar. With the AI, you can come up with a biosimilar in a couple of years.
Yeah.
Not biosimilar, biobetter in a couple of years. So it's kind of scary. It could destroy the patent system and destroy the value that the innovators is entitled to have in today's system. So that system may be questionable 10 years from now.
But before we leave China, one of the things I noted in both your comments is neither of you talked about the cycle times in China.
Yeah.
And certainly my experience is that the cycle times in China are much, much faster, blindingly faster
Right.
than we do, particularly in early development. Do you want to comment on how that can impact the innovation environment?
So I'll take a shot. And I run this company in Taiwan, TBMC, and the work ethic of the Taiwan scientists is similar to the Chinese culture than the U.S. culture. In that, one, people don't quit jobs. If you quit job, your family would ask what's wrong. You got fired. So quitting job is simply not the right good thing to do in that region. And their work-life balance, they give their work-life balance a lot more room. So if the client need them to work through Saturday, Sunday, or even change vacation, they will do that easily. In Taiwan, I don't have to ask. They would automatically reschedule their vacation so that they can deliver that and then go to vacation. So the speed is roughly, because the continuity of knowledge, they don't quit job. I had PhD scientists working on bench work, so on similar work 4 or 5 years, so that there's a continuity of knowledge, and there's a diligence of the willingness to work 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. when continuously. So roughly the speed is about 2x. And I pay a PhD scientist in Taiwan $85,000 salary, fully loaded $120,000. So there's cost edge, there's speed edge. And it's definitely faster and cheaper. The last one we claim is better, but that's just a claim. So, but faster and cheaper can be measured. And today is 2 times faster, 1/3 the cost.
And with the pressures, Ron, that you just talked about, that clearly is a very tempting way to go for innovation, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I talked to some small biotech companies when the first Biosecure Act came out, and that created a lot of concerns for small biotech companies. And for many of those companies, they felt that they have no choice. And you have a finite cash runway, and you have to deliver to the next inflection point, and you have to go faster. You have to contain the cost as much as possible, while at the same time deliver high quality output. And I think many young startup companies chose to go to Taiwan or China, and for exactly the reason, Pat, you just mentioned.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we would of course be remiss if we did not use those 2 letters, AI, right? That's clearly one of the themes of this conference. And we heard a lot, right, in the last couple of days. Technology stacks, hybrid models, generative AI, agentic AI, connection between equipment and models and agents, a lot there. And that has, as we heard from Sanat yesterday, kind of in the vision, the ability to radically change what we do. And yet I think this conference has also shown that when you're out there actually doing it, it's not easy. It's a real challenge. What did the 2 of you see as AI in all of its guises having an impact on our ability to innovate and fostering new and better innovation?
I can take it on this one, Pat. That's okay?
That's okay.
All right. There's no doubt AI will support and even accelerate the innovation. And the power of AI, I think, is evidence. But I think a lot of conversations we have had in the past couple of days very much focus on what the future, the grand vision, the AI can accomplish. But we haven't really talked too much about what the foundations we need to build. You have a fast car, but if you have a country road, you're not going to go very far. So at Landmark Bio, we're a young company, only started about 4.5 years ago, and we benefited from a brand new startup, and we did not have any kind of a legacy system or so on and so forth. And the first thing we did while we're building a facility, and we decided to create a single unified digital platform to generate this golden thread from R&D to process analytical development through GMP manufacturing. Hopefully one day we'll connect to clinic outcome. And that is very important. That is the highway we try to build. A lot of times when people think about it, it's not sexy and it's not exciting. It's basics, right? But we know AI lives and dies on data. If you don't have a data to build your model, to train your model, and AI cannot exist by itself. So data is the foundation, and data is more valuable. So I think this is probably also show why it takes so long to put some kind of AI tools in biomanufacturing and in process development, because many established companies that burdened by the legacies, and you have data reside in different systems and they don't talk to each other. It's very difficult to extract the data out. We used to create a data lake and try to do a variety of things, and that absolutely slowed down the adoption of AI.
So I agree data is important, but my thinking is beyond that. I just think that AI is not just a tool. It can be a tool, but if you use AI as a tool, it's not that powerful. But you can use the AI as an agent. So sometimes we say AI is not a tool, it's an agent. If you use an agent, your productivity and the impact you can generate for your organization, and you properly organize it, again, here you're going to have the right talent and right leadership to manage human and agents, AI agents. If you can do that, the impact would be exponential.
One of the things that's changing in the industry is the demographics of the industry, right? The people who are in the labs now, the people who are practicing, right? Are the greater percentage of Gens Y and Z who are digitally native.
Right.
How do you see that as a pivot point or a change point for the industry, particularly when we think about AI? Do we think that changing demographic will have a significant impact on our ability to innovate?
Yeah, absolutely. When I built Landmark Bio and our lab first opened, and we have a first wave of young scientists coming into our labs, start doing work. And our digital is a little bit behind. We haven't really put the electronic notebook and all of those kind of things together. And our people ask for it. Our people demand digital capabilities, demand kind of the technologies over there. And when they said, we really need to have this in place, I was like, what's wrong with the lab notebook? They were like, they don't use the lab notebook. No one using the paper book. And then this kind of interesting is an aha moment for me, that because they have to use a lab notebook, we haven't really have the system in place just yet. The number of lab notebooks they have consumed in a very short period of time, we literally run out of the lab notebook. And so compared to 20, 30 years ago, and the amount of data through the work of process development, I would say it's so much higher. The volume is so much higher. The complexity is so much higher. Without any kind of those kind of digital or AI tools, I think that you're not going to get the productivity that you want to get. And it's necessity. It's not really something that's nice to have. I think the newer generation of the workforce will ask for the AI technologies or the tools, and because that will empower them. That will empower them to do a better job.
Any comment from you?
I don't think I need to add.
Okay, great. Well, one of the words that was used at this conference was the word cure and curative approaches. And clearly these are now coming to the marketplace. And as patients get the benefit of these curative approaches, business model aside, how do we think that the realization of cures in some area is going to change the pressures on innovation for our industry, right? People saying, hey, you can cure that, why can't you cure that?
Yeah. I think it's a terrific word. Curative therapeutics come in more and more, and my concern is the economics of that, which put a kind of stop on the flow of that. But imagine if we could just produce curable medicines as opposed to, one tablet a day kind of treatment for the rest of your life. I think the one-shot cure definitely is the right way to go. Mm-hmm. And we have the ability to do more and more of that if we can figure out the economics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Ron, any?
Yeah, no, I agree. I left Amgen a few years back and joined a small startup company focusing on ultra-rare disease, curative gene therapies. And we actually took one of our products to European market and recently got approved in US. It's called Limaldi in Europe, Limaldi in US, for ultra-rare disease called MLD, and children's, most of them don't pass the age of 10. It's devastating genetic disorders, and when you see the children got cured by the gene therapy, and that that means everything. That really means everything. I agree that the biggest challenge is economic challenge, because develop those curative therapies take time, capital, and resources. And the patient population is very small, and you don't really see a big market. Investors don't see the financial reward, the return to capital, by investing in those kind of curative small diseases. And the companies is really difficult to survive. But I think the learning from developing those curative cell and gene therapies for rare disease, will help the field continue to evolve and eventually go to larger patient population diseases like autoimmune that we have seen. So I think there has to be some incentive mechanism for the companies who are willing to pioneer some of the cutting edge research, but eventually benefit not just rare disease patients, but a larger patient population.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, we have gone through our time. Can I ask everybody to thank our two panelists today?